Am I audible and my screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. The newsroom was buzzing with chaos, chatter, and impalpable energy. A tinge of urgency, nothing very unusual for the day. Amidst this adrenaline warfare, she was sitting right in middle with hurricane coursing through her soul. She was reading a recent story sent by one of the reporters from Madhya Pradesh. She was watching a video where a mother was howling, beating her chest, crying for justice for her 5-year-old child. A 5-year-old child who was struggling for life and death in a government hospital. A 5-year-old girl was raped by 23-year-old men. Her heart wrenched with pain, unbearable. She directly went to her superior asking for a permission to have a go on this news. This news must break in news. Next news bulletin. The girl must get justice. Her boss, with his eyes deep buried in the computer, without his lifting his head, he just passed on another news story to her and asked her to finish that first. She couldn't understand, so she reiterated, insisted the story is very, very important. It must go in the next bulletin. Her boss finally lifted his head with very bored expression, shrugged and said, "You will do what I told you to do so. You don't have to focus on these stories. If 9 to 10 rape stories doesn't come from this state, how will we know that this is Madhya Pradesh?" Hello everyone, I am Purvi Yadav, co-founder at Sahas, a social change initiative that aims to build a world free of gender-based violence. Sahas in English means courage, courage that comes with unbiased knowledge, courage to make informed choices, courage to be who you are, courage to question, and courage to say no to gender-based violence. The incident that I shared before is what I remember as a turning point in my life. This incident changed something in me, compelled me to think beyond my job and passion for journalism. So when we are 14 or 15 years old, we're posed with a very crucial choice, to choose a subject that will define and cement our careers ahead. And these career choices mostly is medicine or engineering, one of the most admired profession, liked profession, and bore huge expectation from our parents. I'm not saying they're wrong in their expectation, but does the student have any idea of what lies ahead of them, what kind of life they are going to have, do they have any choices in other subjects, and have they ever interacted with a practicing doctor or a working engineer? Probably not. So like all my counterparts, because of my proficiency in biology and mathematics, I gave numerous entrance exams, and then I finished my graduation in pharmaceutical sciences from Pune University. Fresh out of college with dreams of SWAB office, I started working in a pharmaceutical industry. I was flourishing, preparing the industry for first visit by a drug inspector, then getting accreditation. But amidst those four poster wall with not so wonderful company of medicine and with bare human interaction, I started scribbling notes, thoughts, and stories. Journalism always fascinated me, not just the glitz and glamour part of it, but the strength of writing, relaying news, giving voices to the incidences that are happening around me and being part of something bigger than myself. So with my master's in journalism and mass communication, I started a college tabloid, worked in a production house for a singing talent show, and then as a management trainee in corporate social responsibility initiative of Times of India. With a lot of hard work and struggle, I got into a news channel. As an intern, I was conceptualizing, scripting, and producing a news bulletin for special occasion. One such occasion being International Women's Day. That was the first moment when I came across the grim, dark reality of Indian society. While we Indians gloat about how women and men are equal, women are being, prayed as goddesses. Women are given more opportunities, and women are also reaching moon, just as men. But the glaring statistics of ever increased violence against women and girls said something else. Um, I remember I was in evening shift in December 2012 when this news of 23-year-old physiotherapist student being brutally gang raped in running bus broke. What followed next was a huge protest on streets of Delhi, followed by entire country. Everybody was talking about it. The news channels were going blastic about, and reporting life and breath of every part of this incident, this horrifying, terrifying incident. That was the only thing I could think about during the day, because in the news channel I was working on updating it, and in the evenings I found myself protesting in one or the other corner of Delhi. My nights were haunted by one thought: what would I do if something like this happened to me? What will I do if something like this ever happens to me? Is there any way I can stop this? While I will always admire and cherish the responsibility I got while working as a journalist, with over time I experienced lack of sensitivity, the kind of fair and responsible journalism towards gender-based violence. Even the whole of this gender discrimination, gender biases was there in the office itself. So I had a very difficult choice to make. But I had to make that choice. So I chose not to be a spectator. I chose not to be insensitive, frivolous. I chose to be that person who wishes to change this narrative that screams and propagates injustice, inequality among people because of their gender. With this strong determination in my heart, I started Sahas in 2016 to work towards knowledge building of adolescents on gender, sexuality, and reproductive health, thereby building their capacity to challenge gender-based violence in form of child sexual abuse. According to 2007 study by Indian government of nearly 14,500 children across India, 53% of both boys and girls have been subjected to some form of sexual abuse. It was also noted that most of the abusers were very closely related to these children. They were parents, teachers, relatives. That is the reason why 70% of the children never shared their experience of abuse with anyone. The most darkest aspect of this crisis is that they don't know whether they can say no to being touched inappropriately. In 2018, according to NCRB data, 109 children are sexually abused every day, and this situation has worsened in COVID-19. At Sahas, we have designed a 30-hour curriculum, a preventive approach towards child sexual abuse that focuses on physical, psychological, and social dimensions of adolescent life. With this gender work, the intention is to resolve the existing gap in Indian education system, which is still very dismissive of gender and sex education. I remember I was in ninth standard, and we have this chapter, human reproduction system, and our teacher came in, and she seemed very hesitant, and so she was. The moment she started teaching, the boys started laughing, and there was they were having some sort of jokes. The girls had their head down, and I didn't know. I was also feeling very ashamed, filled with guilt while turning off the paper, and I didn't know, why that feeling was coming in. By looking at male reproductive organ or female reproductive organ and menstrual cycle. So adolescence is full of questions, full of changes, and they have a lot of curiosities, and these curiosities and questions are goes unanswered by education system. With my work at SARS, I'm working to provide a conversational space for adolescents where they can ask questions, share their curiosities around the things that matter to them most. I want to be that person for adolescent that I didn't get when I needed one. Um, so one of the crucial aspect of these discussions or the gender work that I am doing is bringing boys and girls together in the space where they can explore the curiosity around each other's gender, have questions, build understanding, so that there is a society that is built by these adolescents, these young people, where men and women understand each other, respect each other, and they see themselves as equal rather than discriminating or pulling each other down. I just want to share an example from, when we were working with Shahabad Dairy in Delhi. One of the boys, after the session on periods, this 12-year-old boy said that we're not very well with money, but when my mother has periods next time, I will fold cotton cloth and give it to her as pad. And I will also help her in daily chores. Uh, we talk about sex, consent, and sexuality as well. Now, in these conversations, lot of thoughts, lot of questions, lot of judgments come out. For example, when a girl says no, she actually means yes. The girls were giving signals. I don't want to comment or put remarks on what happens with the group. I don't want to be felt left around. Boys cannot love boys. Hijras are unnatural. There is nothing as homosexuality is a disease. These are not their thoughts. These are the judgments, the stereotypes that comes by raising in the social environment and society that we are having at the moment. So with these workshops, we provide them the space to let all these judgments out open and then facilitate by debunking these myths. These judgments are like dirt on the window. So they are not able to look out from this window. So when we have these conversations, they have this clear picture. So they do not discriminate, but treat others with respect and empathy. Uh, while we are on the topic of sex consent, I would like to share an example from one of our community visits in Delhi. So there's this very cute, small, fragile girl, 12-year-old, wearing a veil. She comes to me and shares, in her word, while I was going home from park, I saw one Didi being troubled by two boys. I asked them to stop that, but they said they are friends and they're just playing games. By looking at Didi, I knew that she's uncomfortable, she's not happy. So I went to the boys again and I told them that she has not given her consent. Even if she's your friend, you can't do that to her. This is not right. Then I saw one of the police uncle roaming around and I reported this to him. This very same girl also helped and saving one of the boys who were elder to her from being abused by his own uncle. With these gender sensitive environment, the kind of conversation that we are having, these our younger generation can be empowered citizens of India who make well informed choices and are enabled enough to say no to any or all form of gender based violence. Now, this making gender sensitive environment requires gradual effort to cultivate into a gender sensitive ecosystem. Now this we do by engaging with their parents, teachers, young people, police. uh, for me, I feel gender based violence is like a disease. There are a lot of laws, lot of efforts, lot of campaigns going on. Everybody is putting in some or the other effort to provide protection or provide certain sort of relief to the victims of gender based violence. What we are all forgetting is the root cause of gender based violence. Nobody is talking about why gender based violence is happening, why rape is happening. Gender based violence will not go by putting girls locked in their room or deciding their age of marriage or getting them married early or restricting their choices, behavior, and aspiration in the name of protecting them. This will go, this gender based violence will go once we start, challenging the deep rooted, deep seated biases on gender, discrimination that starts from our own home. The moment we do that, we'll start eradicating gender-based violence. We need to work as a society to create gender-sensitive, so a world where people can be who they are, irrespective of their gender and sexual identity. One such effort that we did was last year during COVID-19. Because of COVID-19, we were not able to reach out to community. So we started having these conversation on phone to the women who are there in our home village, Kushipura. It's in Uttar Pradesh. So while we were talking, there were a lot of thoughts and reflections coming out. One such reflection being the girls are getting married very early. They have no clue of what is period, what are sex, what are contraception method. The pitfall being they were getting married, so they were conceiving early without this knowledge, and also this became life threatening and very risky because there are no reproductive health services and hospital nearly in the radius of 50 kilometers. So we decided to run an awareness program with rural women on gender and reproductive health that started last year in December. We're hoping to reach out to as many as girls and women we can. For me, social change begins from within. When you see a problem, when you see a issue, when you see something that is not right, you need to take that step, not wait for government or anybody else to come in, join in. That one step needs courage. And I strongly believe that all of us has that courage. You just need to have that courage and take that one step, and I assure you rest of the world follows. Collaboration is the key of social change. With our 5 years of work at Sahas, we've collaborated with government schools, authority, police, educational institution, NGOs, and reached out to more than 4,000 adolescents, 2,000 young people across 6 states of India. um, Gender-based violence is a growing pandemic. Every day, every hour, every minute, some or the other person is suffering, is getting affected by this gender-based violence, and it needs collective action from each one of us. For me, the first step to start to challenge gender-based violence was starting of Sahas. It's a long, long step, a road ahead, but I know I'm on the right path. What about you? Thank you so much.